of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will begin with roll call. Bonnie Benz, here. Sherry Bowman, here. Mercedes Evans, here. Michelle Forbes, here. Jennifer Hoover, here. I'm here. Alyssa Packard, Emily Smith, here. Thank you. All right, the first item on the agenda is our president's comments, and I do want to begin by announcing that we will be going into executive session after our meeting tonight, and this will be related to the potential settlement associated with the Sir Luco land use appeal at the corner of 32nd and Chestnut. I also just wanted to bring up paving really quickly, and before we have public comment tonight, I know there have been a lot of questions recently about paving. This has been in the minutes over the past couple of years. We've been discussing this microsurfacing, but it's still something that is new for our borough, so it's a lot of things coming up for the first time in terms of public questions. But we have discussed this in committee meetings beginning in September of 21 and through June of 22, and we discussed it at full council meeting beginning in October, November of 21 and in March and April of 22. Also, if you're looking for additional information, it's on the website, and Julie's been doing an excellent job keeping our Facebook page up to date with information about the paving. But I do want to give our engineer a moment just to speak to kind of where we are right now with some of the microsurfacing projects, which is a new technique for our borough.
Thank you. So the current paving project has three different aspects to it. There's the construction of ADA accessible curb ramps. There's some traditional mill and paving work, which is the technique that we've used for past decades in Campbell Borough. And then the third is the microsurfacing. The curb ramp work is ongoing. I'm sure you've seen it around town, removing the old curb ramps and replacing them with new concrete curb ramps that meet ADA accessibility standards. The mill and pave work is scheduled to start the week of October the 3rd. The work that you've seen happening so far on the roadways is the microsurfacing work. Within that microsurfacing category, kind of breaks down into two different bid items in the contract. The first is just a single application of the microsurfacing material. That hasn't started yet. That's scheduled to start the work of September 26th. So the work that you have seen is the areas where we're doing 2 layers of microsurfacing with a fiber mat. That involves the application of a slurry, a binder, a liquid material that goes down, a fiberglass mat is impressed into it, and then the aggregate goes on top and gets rolled in. That happens in the first application process, and that's where we are now. That's happened. There's a period of time that has to pass between the first application and the second application for the binder to cure out, so that the second application will adhere well and will have a long-lasting finished product. That's the time that we're waiting out right now. That period of time goes from about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the weather. The weather that we've had lately hasn't been great. We've had a lot of rain, so we're more towards the 3-week or 3 weeks and a few days. During that time, there is an exposed aggregate course on the top, and I think that's what a lot of folks are seeing and is causing concern. And some of that material is loose. That's not by any means the finished product. That material still needs another layer of the binder material to go on top. And the finished product will be pretty similar to what you have on a paving surface, a traditional asphalt surface, which is aggregate in a binder. It's not going to be aggregate loose on the top. So we're not there yet. The contractor still has to complete the second step. And we are kind of in this interim period while we're waiting for the first application to cure. Currently, the contractor is scheduled to get back to those areas the end of next week. They think it's going to be cured sufficiently by then. So it'll be the end of next week and into the week after. They should be putting down the second layer and getting a surface that doesn't have the loose stones on top. We've also heard some concerns about overspray, and we have addressed those with the contractor. When we have windy days, they need to do a better job of controlling where that spray goes, and we've kind of put them on notice that that's an issue that they need to be more cautious about. At the end of the job, we do a final inspection, and if there is overspray on areas where it's not supposed to be, we have the ability to compel the contractor to come back in and fix that, whether it's with pressure washing or other techniques. So we are going to walk the area at the conclusion of the job, foot by foot, and flag any of those areas that have overspray or have the material tracked onto where it's not supposed to be, and make them come back and fix it. So that's where we we are currently. It does change, the schedule does change a little bit day by day because it's pretty weather dependent. But I talked to the contractor this morning, and that's the schedule that they have as of today.
Mike, thank you. Can you just say a comment or two about the use and benefit of FiberMat? Why was it used on those particular streets?
Sure. In the past, we've used, mill and pave has really been the only tool in the toolbox that we've used. In mill and pave, you know, you come in and you grind up an inch or two at the top of the road and you put down a new course of traditional black asphalt paving. That works well, but it's fairly costly. It has a lifespan of about 20 years. There are a lot of other technologies that are in the marketplace now, and have been for 10 or 20 years, that are something more than just a seal coat, but not quite a full paving. And that's what we're trying to use here, is to catch some of these streets before they really start to deteriorate and generate so many cracks that a lot of water can get in there and freeze and thaw, because once that starts to happen, the road deteriorates very quickly. In the past, we've been in kind of a reactive mode of waiting for those roads to fail and then come back and mill and pave them for a significant price tag. We're trying to, as we go forward, catch them before they start to really deteriorate with some of these other technologies like microsurfacing and the FiberMat. Both traditional microsurfacing and the double layer FiberMat do that. The FiberMat is a more robust product. So you can catch roads that are a little bit farther along the degradation curve before they really start to fall off and can start to crack up and freeze thaw. So we're trying to take advantage of these other tools that we have available to us with the end goal of, over time, improving the quality of streets for fewer dollars spent.
Okay, we're open for public comment at this point. We do have one planned public comment that, and I'll invite Mr. Robbie Tubbs up to the podium first to speak to that, and then after that, anyone, please feel free to come up and share your comments. If you come up, please introduce yourself and state your address in the borough, and if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your generous invitation to allow me to speak tonight. Thanks for all your service that you do to Camp Hill. It's much appreciated. My name is Robbie Tubbs. I am a new member of the Camp Hill Borough. We moved about a year ago, and I started teaching high school history here at Camp Hill High School. I teach civics and government to our 10th graders, and I teach AP US history to our 11th and sometimes 12th graders. I have been teaching for 9 years. I've been teaching government for 9 years, and I've really found kind of my calling in really focusing on the civics of civics and government. I think sometimes government teachers get caught up in the nerdy weeds that we like to do, that we forget that engagement is an important aspect of teaching civics. And so I make that a central theme in every one of my civics classrooms. And so I'm here to speak to you tonight about a program that I think would benefit Camp Hill Borough and would benefit Camp Hill High School. It's ran through the Pennsylvania Association of Boroughs, and it's called the Junior Council Person Program. It is sponsored, like I said, by the Association of Boroughs, and I've given you a handout that gives a little bit of information about this, and I just want to highlight kind of 2 paragraphs here, and then some of the things that I envision for a potential for this program. The Junior Council Person Program provides youth in our community with an opportunity to engage in borough government, develop leadership skills. It allows borough officials to serve as mentors to students who will be future leaders in their communities. A JCP program allows high school and college students an opportunity to learn critical skills, including team building, collaboration, public speaking, public engagement, budgeting, and running effective meetings. It allows for the student the opportunity to deliberate on issues that are affecting his or her community. So I have a vision for this program that I think would be very cool, and one thing that I think would benefit Camp Hill and make it a unique program is the fact that a lot of these borough programs that start this, it's the borough starting the program and then going out to try to find students. And I think where you guys might be nicely situated is I'm in the high school bringing the students to you. so we have a potential for longevity here in starting this potential program. So to speak to kind of my vision here, as I said, I teach 10th grade. That's the track that we teach civics and government. And so in my vision, we would start this program, and you would get a new student every year. That student would come out of my class. It would be an application process. The PA Association of Boroughs actually suggests having students write an essay which I'm all about. I love reading and grading essays. And so, we can kind of do that on the high school end of things, and vet candidates and make sure that we're sending, the best possible Campbell High School representative to you. Of course, Borough Council has the leeway there, and we can talk about how this program could look. Maybe it looks like me vetting 2 or 3 candidates and then you all interviewing the rest and you having the final say on who gets to be that candidate. That's definitely something that we could talk about. The nice thing about this program is we've got flexibility to tailor this and make it exactly what we want. But I would envision that this student would serve with you for a year, a calendar year, which would then allow for them to move on in their curriculum and then me to get a new batch of students and us to start this process over again. And so there's a lot of areas I think that we could work together on this. Now, it's obvious that this would be a member of the council and would be asked to sit with the council, but obviously they can't vote, and obviously they can't sit in their own executive sessions. That's understood, and that would be understood from the student and from me as well. But they are encouraged to participate in as much as possible. Right? I'm actually pursuing and checking in if this would maybe count for some internship credit for the student that does participate in this, because they are investing a lot of time in being here once a month. That might come with some type of maybe student initiative that maybe they would have to be required to generate from that, or maybe be encouraged to do so if they just feel that they would be interested in doing that. So there's, again, lots of avenues that we could think of there as far as growth. The Pennsylvania Association of Boroughs doesn't limit the number of seats that you can have for junior council members, so if you think that it would be good to have more than just 1 seat, that's also another avenue we could explore. I also had the idea of maybe having a second seat that was maybe a retention seat. So maybe you have a student who comes in 10th grade, really enjoys it and is really invested, then maybe they can be elected to that retention seat for another year, for a second year, and continue their work. Of course, that's, again, up to you and something we could continue to discuss. There is, it would be obviously understood that, you could, again, tailor the position however you want. You could have the student give some type of student-led report if you would like. And we could clarify this, and I could make sure that students have that understanding of what that expectation would be right away. All in all, I think this would be a great opportunity to get my students out into their community and remind them that we've got a lot of work to do as a community and as a group, and start them in that kind of civic engagement and mindset early. So that's my plan. I have provided a sample resolution that can be kind of tailored exactly to what you would desire, but it's simply a sample resolution that was provided by the PA Association of Boroughs for your consideration and potential passage. If you would like to move quickly on this, I would also like to. I think an October approval would be a perfect timeline, because then that would give us a full year term. And then when I start back to school next year, I can start the process in September of vetting candidates and getting you options for the potential seat.
Thank you. I think this is wonderful, and I would suggest, since we do want to move it in October, then maybe we could talk about it today during Community Business Relations, because Community Business Relations Committee, Community Business Government Relations Committee, doesn't meet before our next council meeting. So we can have a discussion of that today, public discussion, so that hopefully we can put it on the agenda and approve a resolution next month.
If we do have a question, though, that only he might know the answer to.
Yes, let's bring him up then during the discussion, can you stick around for a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
No problem.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for your time. Appreciate it.
Other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Nathan Wolf. I'm an attorney in Carlisle. I'm here on behalf of my clients, Wendy and Chuck Landis, who own Watch and Grow Daycare that's on South 16th Street. I've been in communication with your solicitor. What brings us here tonight, and the reason that I'm asking for council's attention, is that they recently learned that there is a daycare facility that is being advertised on 1901 Chestnut. That property is in your low-density residential zone, and my client, as soon as she learned what was going on by seeing a truck at that property with the logo on, came into the zoning office, asked for, did a right-to-know request, and got a copy of the zoning permit. And it suggests that there was an extension of or expansion or change to a non-conforming use. So in that zone, it's not a permitted use whatsoever. And in my communications with your solicitor, I was informed that there had apparently been a representation made to your prior zoning officer that there had previously been a daycare facility at that site. I did my research. That property was from 1995 to 2012, was Advanced Business Products. They did dictation service and sales. When Mr. Force, who owned the property from 95 to 2019, sold the building, it had been vacant for 7 years. To my knowledge, it has been vacant subsequent to that. I am asking council to take the step of asking the zoning officer to perform an investigation as to what was underlying the permit being granted, and that under multiple sections of your zoning ordinance, there is authority to revoke a permit that was issued based on false or false information or misrepresentation. I recognize the fact that that permit was issued in November of 2021. There's also a 6-month time window once a zoning permit's been issued for work to be commenced. There was no evidence of any work being done on that property, even to date. My clients pass by that property daily. We've got 3 of the Landis ladies and their husbands here that are active in that business and are present in that neighborhood every single day. I have spoken with Tammy Walker, who lives 4 doors away, has lived at that at 2007 Chestnut Street for 33 years. She said there has never once been a daycare operating there. There are no exterior improvements that indicate there was ever a daycare there. No play area, nothing. I don't know what led your zoning officer to issue that permit, but if you want to have integrity to your ordinance, and the whole reason that we're here is when my client wanted to expand her business in 2019 to an adjacent property to where she is, to relieve parking, she was told you can't do that. We have put an ordinance in place in 2015 that limits you to, what was the designation for the district? Your retail, basically where the strip malls are. That you can only have daycare centers.
Regional shopping center, zoning district.
Thank you. So that aside from that, unless you had a non-conforming use, there would have to be zoning hearing board approval. Now, there's going to be, in my discussions with your solicitor, there was a question about vested rights. And one of the things that I have suggested to your solicitor is, if somebody made a misrepresentation, they cannot be allowed to rely on vested rights. They can't be allowed to rely on misrepresentations that they make to your municipal zoning officer, which, in fact, would, even under your own ordinance, under, I think it was section 1203, potentially raise a question of violation of Title 18 under the Crimes Code for false statements. So, having said that, I would ask that the borough consider directing your zoning officer to commence an investigation, to direct a cease and desist for any existing work that may be going on until that investigation can be completed, and to acknowledge and authorize the zoning officer to share that information with myself or my client once that investigation is complete, so we can determine whether or not we would have to take other formal action to be in front of the zoning hearing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has of me of that.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. Thank you.
We have been in discussions with Nate, obviously, the prior codes official issued a permit based on what his understanding was. We're working with Colton, reviewing the information that was provided by Mr. Wolf. But I do think that in addition to what Mr. Wolf says, there has been a significant amount of work done at the property, and I think that the work is actually nearly complete, if that's correct. Colton?
Yeah, they ended up obtaining building permits, I believe back in May. They had to make some upgrades to the building to complete an official change in use under the building code. So yeah, you have those permits and documents.
So that's the information we're reviewing with the codes officials.
And precisely that question of a change in use of the building, if it was already a daycare, it would not have had to have been changed. That's the basic questioning is if it was not a daycare previously, then what work was being done to turn it into a daycare? And you can't have the same be true at the same time.
I don't think I would agree with that. There's always work to be done at properties, so I think we'll look into it as you've requested, and we'll be back to you.
Okay, so you'll follow up with them privately?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
Hey, my name's Reed Nix. I'm 2011 Fairview. I'm here to talk about the Seabrook Park and the lack of maintenance going on down there. I've talked to Sarah before and Lester on the phone about not mowing grass down at Seabrook Park, and the plan of not maintaining the park down by Congo Creek anymore. It's a concern to me for multiple reasons. I'm down there, but one of the biggest things is that everything I'm being told is not coming out to be true. For one, I was told that it would be cut every 60 days, as for now, until the trees that were down there got established. And that's not the case. It has not been going on. Somebody did go down and cut this year, but it was not the maintenance that was going on. And my concern is for, we've seen across the street that they stopped maintaining over there. In a claim that it will be maintained as a Hyperion barrier, they're not maintained. So saying it will be maintained as something that is not maintained anymore is not the truth and on its face. So I am told that there's another meeting for that on the 27th for the Congo Creek Greenway public meeting. And again, I can address, if that's the place to do it, but I did want to comment, like, make you guys aware. I'm being told multiple things of who even is approving that. They're saying that it was approved by your meeting, and then with conversations with Sarah, it seems like you guys are not approving that. I was also told that the EPA was forcing you guys to do that, which we know is not the case, because the EPA does not force people to do things. And again, just in the West Virginia versus EPA, it's been shown that they actually can't force you guys to. And so that's my basic concerns there, of basically not maintaining a park anymore, uglying up, an existing park, and whatever it means for a cleanliness of water. I'd love to see any sort of study that goes on with a grass field and the cleanliness that goes from a completely unmaintained junk forest, because they're not going to plant and tree, other than the trees that are there, they're just going to let whatever grow. I would definitely suggest to every one of you to go down to the park at Conde de Gwinnett and look across the street where they stopped maintaining about 5 years ago. You can see exactly what it'll look like, and that's one of my biggest concerns here today, is that we can see exactly what it's going to look like 5 years from now, and you can't walk through there. So anyway, that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the agenda approval. This is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the agenda for the meeting, the minutes from council and committee meetings, which are all included in your packet, and the treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve the agenda approvals? Thank you. A second? Second. All right. All those in favor of the agenda approvals, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll move ahead then with the agenda as it stands, and the committee minutes and council meeting minutes, treasurer's report have been approved. The first thing on the agenda after that is the manager's report. Sarah.
I just have a brief report today. We have a lot going on in the committees that I think they'll represent for themselves. We have had two audits done recently, one by the Pennsylvania State Attorney General, or State Auditor's Office, of our liquid fuels tax fund, and there were no findings on that report. And we also have completed our our accountant has completed our annual audit as well, and we have come through that with flying colors as well. So one of of the items on tonight's agenda will be to acknowledge that the audit has been completed, but there's no additional action required other than acknowledging the audit. We also have received another grant. Till we figure out what to do with it. No, we know what to do. We know what to do with it. It will not be official until September the 27th, but they have preliminarily recommended it for approval. The grant would be for $88,000, which we would match with $22,000 in our own funds. And the objective is to, it's not a study, it's a feasibility analysis of the existing sidewalk infrastructure along the bypass. Along a section of the bypass. It's not going to be the entire length of the bypass, but it's beginning to make those connections and figure out what the ideal options are for improving the connectivity of the pedestrian facilities there. So I'm not sure when that would start, but we will plan to budget for that for 2023. I participated in 2 municipal outreach meetings. One was with the county commissioners. The other was with the County Planning Commission. One of the highlights of the County Commissioners meeting was the new volunteer firefighter and EMS tax credit program. I believe Cumberland County is the first in the state to offer up to $250 credit on county real estate tax bills for active volunteers. So I think the fire chief is familiar with the program. If that encourages people to decide to volunteer, that would be a great incentive for them. So. I also put a link in my report. We had a gentleman here a few months ago talking about the spotted lanternfly situation. I know there's lots of information out there, but there was a highlighted speaker at the Planning Commission meeting, and the Penn State Extension has a lot of information about spotted lanternflies. The main tree to look for is the tree of heaven, and if you see that, that's the one you want to try to remove, because that itself is invasive, and it also attracts spotted lanternflies. So I just add that into my report because it was highlighted at one of the meetings I attended.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, we're on to reports. We're on to reports of committees and board liaisons. The first committee report is Public Safety. All right, thank you. Let's start with the mayor's report, please.
Okay, thank you. Police department handled 645 complaints in August. Our newest officer, patrol officer, Evan Ricker, is on the job for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Field training. He's in the field training right now, doing well. The West Shore Police Chiefs are conducting consortium testing for new police officers this coming weekend. There's 259. So we'll see how many show up for the testing, but hopefully, if half of them show up, get a good list of potential candidates for that. Fire department-wise, 34 calls in August, 76 man-hours on those calls. Fire department's having an open house on October 15th from 10 to 2, right out here on Walnut Street. And I want to thank everybody in the community that supported our chicken barbecues. We are done for the year. See everybody next year for that. And I encourage everybody to go to the farmers market at Trinity Lutheran Church every Tuesday. The ribbon cutting yesterday, and it was really nice, and I highly recommend it. So that's my report.
Thank you. One of the things that contributed to the high enrollment rate was that they waived the fee for the test. So hopefully it wasn't that great in terms of turnout the last test. We were like, let's try something new. So they have a lot of people. So we're excited. The only thing for me, just heads up to the council that the committee's currently reviewing the police department policy manual. And we hope to have that to you by mid-November to review and hopefully approve in December. So we're working on that, going through it, and next month we're going to have a special meeting to just kind of go over our comments, and then we can bring you like a cleaner copy. And that concludes my report. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Public Works, Jennifer.
I think it's fantastic talking about trash, among other things. It's the first time I've been able to say that sentence in my life. The Public Works Committee recently met on Tuesday, September 6th. It meets again on Tuesday, October 4th. And I just want to highlight just a few things from our most recent committee meeting. And then I'll turn it over to Mike to give his engineer's report. And as, of course, as was stated earlier, it's clear within the borough that there's multiple projects underway right now. And I just want to say we appreciate all of your input and questions and emails. But we also really appreciate your patience and understanding that these projects are underway, and we'll wrap them up as best we can with the least amount of inconvenience as possible. But they are, of course, messy projects sometimes. So, that being said, the committee talked about a couple things, and just to know, we talked previously about a sanitary sewer rate study, and we are on track for that to be some potential great information in the near future. So that is on track. But more importantly, one of the issues that we talked about was the force main lining project over at Seabrook Park with regard to pump station. And there's been some issues with that lining, the installation of it. So as of our last meeting, staff was in conversation with that contractor about next steps and whether or not a full dig-in repair or if there's something else that can be done. But our committee knows reflect that in any case that contractor would be responsible for those costs and would be subject to any liquidated damages if necessary. But just to call that to your attention, because that means that that pipe along the road will remain there for a little longer than we had anticipated. So Mike can talk about that more if he wants to. And then, as I said, with regards to the paving, we heard an update about that. And I just want to say that, we are in the interim, as was stated, but certainly after the project is finished, and as our staff has communicated, we are happy to review the entire project, and again, continue to receive your emails and your input, and take that into consideration as we potentially, improve the performance of that fiber mat or record surfacing generally, and, adjust accordingly if we need to. Okay, so before I talk about trash, I'm going to turn it over to Mike for his engineer's report, and he can talk about the 3 of the 4 action items.
Thank you. Maybe I'll jump around a little bit so I can pick up one of the last things you noted, which is the Seabrook Park Force Main project. Not an action required on that this month, but there has been a hitch. The contractor in the first run of lining they attempted to install was not successful. They couldn't get it inflated properly.
Could you just mention, just for people who might not know what a force main is?
Sure.
I didn't before I got to be part of this conversation.
In Seabrook Park, there's a limestone building, small, shed-size building. There's a swimming pool, and inside of that building are some heavy-duty pumps for sewage, and they pump it out through a pipe to another pump station, and then ultimately out of the borough to Hampton Township, where Hampton Township takes it to the treatment plant. That building in Seabrook Park and the equipment, most importantly, the equipment inside of it is old and outdated, and it's impossible to get parts for it. So we're pursuing a project to replace that pump station with modern equipment so that it will continue to function. When we put in those new pumps, they're going to run at a higher pressure than the existing pumps do, which means that the pipe they discharge to needs to be stronger in order to take that higher pressure. We're skeptical that the existing pipe has the strength to carry that higher pressure. So we're lining it. We let a contract several months ago to find who would give us the best price to install the liner. The liner goes inside the pipe. It can be turned, it can be inverted like a sock. It can be pulled in place. There are different techniques to do it, but it goes in and it gets inflated, and then with usually steam or hot water or UV light, depending on the exact liner we're using, that cures. And so it sets and it becomes a hard fiberglass pipe within a pipe. And then we're no longer relying on the structural strength of the existing pipe, which is over 50 years old, to carry that higher pressure, we have a new pipe inside the pipe. That didn't go very well on the first attempt for this project. And so the contractor is currently in the process of cutting out their first pipe install attempt. We sent them some correspondence, an effective work notice, and let them know that clearly this didn't meet the specification, and we're not paying for it. So they are currently, with a robotic cutter head, going through the pipe and cutting out inch by inch the 650 feet of pipe that they attempted to install. And that's the contractor's responsibility, and Borough doesn't pay for that. We want to make sure that if this contractor is going to continue, that they get it right next time, because there are several more runs to line in order for them to complete the overall project. We have a meeting with them tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. to talk about kind of root causes of the problem and what steps we're going to take to resolve it. Lester and I have been back and forth, and we have some suggestions and recommendations we want to talk through in terms of the geometry of the pit, where they pull it in, and the length that they do at a time, and a number of different items like that. So tomorrow morning, we're going to talk through all of that and find out. It's going to be incumbent upon the contractor to prove to us that they can continue to do the job successfully. And if we're happy with their explanation of what went wrong and how they're going to fix it, then we'll say, okay, please continue. In the meantime, there is a bypass line at 25th Street, because the pipe that normally serves that purpose is out of service while we figure out the line. That's the line that you may have seen laying on the ground, or it dives down underground to driveways. And unfortunately, this means that's going to have to be there for a little while longer. We do still need those pumps to operate while construction is ongoing. So that's where we are. We don't have the ultimate solution figured out with the contractor yet, but like I said, have a number of ideas that we're going to talk through with them tomorrow morning. And we're not going to pay until they do it right. So that's the force main part of the project. And that was the first contract that we awarded. We had to build that first before we put the new pumps in and put the higher pressure to it. We have now received the bids for the second contract of this project, which is the pump station building itself. So this is going to involve removal of that limestone building that's in the park, and just to the west of it, constructing a new building, which is going to have new modern pumping equipment and a backup generator. We received the bids for that project on August the 17th. We had 3 bidders. They were tightly clustered, which usually indicates a good bid. There wasn't a wide spread between the low bidder and the high bidder. And the low bidder was very close to the estimate. Their bid came in at $896,365 for the Cedar Park pump station. We also, in that bid, included an alternate that if the bids came in low, we may consider also doing some smaller upgrades, much smaller upgrades, at Creek Road. The bid didn't come in low, it didn't come in high, it came in pretty much on target. We said, well, there's not really extra wiggle room in the budget, so we're recommending declining the Creek Road component and just awarding the Cedar Park pump station. So that'll be one of our requested actions when we get to the second phase. Another contract that we're dealing with this month is one that we bid in 2019 for a contractor to provide on-call CCTV or closed-circuit television inspection services for storm and sanitary lines. So when we had a project coming up, we could call this contractor, and they were already under contract, so they could be responsive a lot more quickly, and have them come out and TV the lines, so we know exactly what we're working with. That contract has expired. It was a 3-year contract, and it ran from 2019 to 2022, so the term of the contract is up. We're not suggesting rebidding that contract at this point, and that's for 2 reasons. The Stormwater Authority is currently has a contract that is televising all of the storm lines in the borough, so we're not going to need that for a while. I mean, that's going to be done in one shot. On the sanitary side, we've been talking with Lester, and Lester's been talking about vendors about the possibility of buying their own equipment. By the time you pay a contractor for 3 or 4 or 5 years to do it, that starts to approach the price of buying your own equipment, and then you have it, and you can do it whenever, wherever, and for a longer period of time. So just kind of a strategic change there that we may not want to rebid this contract. There is a balance due to the contractor to close this one out. While they haven't done any work recently, there's retainage. So over those 3 years as they did projects, we didn't pay them 100%, we paid them 90% of what they did, and we held 10% to the end. We're now at the end, and they requested that final 10% be used. So that'll be another requested action when we get to the second phase of the meeting to close that contract and release the retainage.
$20,390.02.
Thank you, sorry. Paper shuffle. And that'll be the only other action we have.
Thank you, Mike. Back to paving for just one moment before I move on to the other topic. You had mentioned 3 dates, Mike. You said September 19th, the week of September 19th, September 26th, and October 3rd. Can you just say
Sure.
what's happening when on those dates?
The week of the 19th, so next week, the contractor's going to continue working on the curb ramps that they're currently working on, and that's going to extend all the way through the week of the 19th. The week after that, the contractor is going to be coming in, well, starting at the end of next week, but mainly the bulk of the work is going to occur the week afterwards, and they're going to do the microsurfacing. We've talked to them and instructed them that they should come back to those areas that got a single layer first. We want to get that addressed as soon as possible, and then move on to the areas which are a single application, which would be new areas. And then the week of October the 3rd, they're scheduled to do the milling and paving. We don't want them to be working on all those roads simultaneously because they are in pretty close proximity to each other, and that's going to be a lot of on-street parking to get this right. So we're trying to do one technique at a time. The contract dates, the contractor does intend to meet them. I spoke with them this morning. I think they're on track to meet the contractual dates, which is a substantial completion date of, I believe, October 17th, middle of October, and final completion at the end of October, I think October 31st.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now, talking about trash and recycling, and I will look to Sarah and Alyssa and Bonnie from the hand if I can speak. So, we are, tonight our action item will be to authorize advertisement for the solicitation of bids for refuse and recyclables and processing. And as a reminder, presently, as we know, Penn Waste is our current hauler. They basically provide us with unlimited trash and unlimited recycling collection. And our residential quarterly rate since April 2022 has been $62.25 a quarter, and that is billed by the borough. So, the contract or bid documents before us. I just want to touch on the timeline first, and in terms of contract, and then the scope of the work. So regarding the timeline, if we vote to advertise the bid documents this evening, the notice will be published on September 15th and 22nd in the Secretary. We, the borough, would receive sealed bids until Monday, October 3rd. We would then review the contract documents at a pre-bid meeting on September 23rd. Bidders would be able to seek any clarification from our office until September 29th. And then the Public Works Committee would review bids at our October 4th meeting, followed by a 30-day review period. And then in November, at our full council meeting, we would ideally award the contract to the lowest responsive bidder. Okay? So that is the timeline before us. Regarding the terms of the contract, I think for comparison, and Bonnie, I know you can speak to this, we are currently in a second renewal of our current contract. So when we bid the new contract, it would be for a term of 3 years and 3 months, starting in April 1st of 2023 and ending in March 31st, 2026. And it would likewise include an option to renew on a yearly basis for up to 2 one-year renewal periods. And there are some windows of time in which we have to provide that notification back and forth to us to them and them to us. Okay. Then, probably regarding the more interesting part of the conversation, the scope of work. So as a committee, I think I just want to note that as a committee, we are conscious of the fact that costs have increased for their company and for the residents, and as a consequence, rates have been raised. And we wanted to talk and hopefully find a way that we would be able to reduce costs to residents, but not necessarily at the expense of decreased service. So some of the options that's kind of led into why we are bidding 8 options. And we'll talk about that. The bid documents themselves do reflect our intention to continue current and present services such as our borough billing, our curbside and recycling collection once per week, to be collected on the same day as is now, unlimited recycling and distribution of a 96-gallon plastic recycling cart. We had talked about whether or not we should downsize that cart, but I think in the hope of being a good environmentalist, that we not have to get a smaller cart just for the sake of getting a smaller cart, okay? That also additionally the borough's tag bag program would continue for low volume customers. The collection of one bulky item would continue. Annual curbside Christmas tree collection would continue, as would our annual shredding event. The containers, and when we say containers, we're talking about the big blue containers, are the large scale, like the big ones, not the ones at our house, but the containers that are down by the Borough Public Works Department area, down there, the recycling dumpsters, as well as the hauler providing us containers in the event that there would be storm damage. And then additionally, alley collection of waste and refuse would continue. We may have to make 2 minor adjustments to that Schedule D to reflect present service of an alley between 32nd and 33rd Street, which has been an interest of council and committee, as well as the alley between South 19th and South 18th. So we just received very recent information, so we may have to tweak that just a bit to reflect that conversation. Okay, so those are all the services that would continue, as well as the lake appliance or appliance, but you do have to talk them back. So for the majority, those services would remain. In an effort to hopefully increase services, but again, not at the expense of increased cost, the bid documents do reflect our interest to increase potentially curbside leaf waste. So I know certain residents have inquired of me on whether or not we can increase from once a month to twice a month. We don't know what that will mean in terms of cost, but we are asking and finding out what those rates might be. Yard waste, leaf waste obviously means yard waste, not to be confused with the leaf waste done or collection by the borough sweeper. But that yard waste would continue as is now, at least through the same months of April to November. Okay? And again, as an effort to hopefully reduce costs, we had talked in the bid documents reflect that our current service is basically unlimited service, which is 4 containers of 64 gallons of trash, not to exceed. There's a weight limit in there as well. So our bid options, again, of which there are 8, would basically rebid the 4 64 gallons, but would also allow for 2 64-gallon refuse containers instead. So we would be hopefully generating less trash, and then hopefully maybe it would reduce costs. We will see, but that is our intention, as well as, in addition to changing the maximum set-up limit, we have also asked for numbers to reflect what would happen if we, like our recycling cart, we were given a refuse cart of at least 64 gallons. The idea is that perhaps if they were able to load it like they load the recycling cart, that maybe that might mean less manpower, womanpower, on behalf of the hauler. Okay? So, the bid form was in the packet, but also was updated again this afternoon to reflect some minor updates. But again, there are 8 options that I talked about in some way. But hopefully through those 8 options, we will then be able to pick at our October meeting. I can't keep all the dates straight. And then finally, and before any questions, just to note that the bid package has had legal review, and that
about the questionnaire, that bidders have to list 5 municipalities where they do work. Are there any plans to go to those municipalities and use them as like a reference check to see what kind of work they're providing, what kind of service?
I'll defer to staff to see if that's a regular investment.
I love that idea, but I don't think anyone is happy with their trash service, no matter where you go, but sure.
I would actually, the biggest complaint my municipal clients have gotten this year has been about poor trash service because of staffing shortages. So I don't know that you'll necessarily get a positive review from any neighboring municipality about the trash service because it's been the #1 complaint throughout the state.
But what about customer service in general?
That's the problem. They can't get people to come do the routes, so then they get 100 phone calls every trash day. So I do not think you'll get a
We can
necessarily
try,
overly positive
if we
review.
know people on council, in other communities, we can reach out, or we can just do a cold call if we want, but I'm not super optimistic there's gonna be anyone who gets a glowing recommendation.
I
can't
just
tell you
wanted
what
to ask, we're working on a tow truck.
Yes.
Thanks for our committee, and it might be the same response, but just wanted to ask.
Sarah, can you talk and help us understand better what is the process by which we will, not rate, but score the documents, like, is.
I mean, one of the main reasons for having them list the other communities where they work is just so that you don't have someone who happens to have a dump truck in their backyard say that they can provide trash service to your community and give you the low bid and you have to take it or protest it. You know, that's a really extreme example, which you would be able to throw that out, but just to demonstrate that they're capable of handling the quantity waste that our community produces. So if they have no other clients, that would lead you to believe that perhaps they wouldn't be able to provide that. So it's not so much about, you know, the way you would call someone on the phone if you were doing a job reference check, but it's more just to demonstrate they have a track record of service to communities. The one thing I wanted to mention is that the trash contract does not start until April 1st of 2023. So we're way out in front of this. I don't want anybody to get the impression that this happens at the end of the year. We have allowed several months of cushion here if there's some further check that we need to do or additional effort that we need to expend if anything goes wrong, because what could go wrong. But we have that cushion of time to do that. So, but we'd like to get it done before we pass the budget for 2023 so that we have a sense of what that cost will be to put into our budget. Was there another question, or am I just?
Okay. I have a few questions. All right, first, I like your question on the satisfaction, because you do see a difference in communities. Some of these trash haulers or whatever just throw the trash cans just like haphazard all over the place. And, we're kind of spoiled here with people putting them back, and it looks decent when you drive through the neighborhood. Anyway, there's one of my questions. First off, this 8 options, I think that's terrific. Why are we not bidding our current situation as a benchmark? I just was curious why we're not bidding our current.
We are.
Oh, we are,
Yes,
okay.
and that's probably the very A1, right? Yeah, that's what A1 requires.
Okay, so
We say unlimited, and that's what they consider. They consider this to be unlimited, but our contract actually says 4 64-gallon refuse containers, which is like a lot of trash.
It is.
It's like 256 gallons.
That's crazy, right, okay, terrific, that was my first question. Second, this is a lot of options to vet, and it's just like having it be like a cost-based evaluation. Like, should we be surveying folks to find out from the community which option has the highest, meets the highest amount of need, and weigh that versus the cost? Because it would be very difficult to understand what everybody's trash situation is, just based on your own observation of one person.
I think the community would be invited to provide input on our Public Works Committee meeting, as well as at our full council meeting before we would award the contract. So I would encourage any residents who have comments, questions regarding the bids that are provided to us, which we will review in committee. They can provide that feedback to us at that time.
Okay, because I can see, okay, mean, I think I'm gonna think about it from a communications perspective and try to get ahead of it a little bit and explain what's happening and then the things we're weighing, because I would hate for us to make a decision and then folks who had no idea that we were making this decision come back and say, like, you guys went with 2 trash cans, let's say.
I can say that the committee has discussed this probably for at least 3 months in a row,
Okay.
and we will discuss it again in
And again,
October.
2 trash cans, 2 64-gallon trash cans, which is for, most people have 32 gallons. Like your standard trash can is 32 gallons. That's still 4 32-gallon trash cans a week. It's a lot of trash, and I think our main priority is that we are considering costs and trying to figure out how to keep costs as close to our current rates as possible without diminishing service substantially. And our opinion is that going to 4 32-gallon trash cans still allows for a high
Oh,
level
yeah,
of
yeah,
service.
for 4 is
We
good,
can
but
get
if we're going for 2, I'm
we're
saying
not,
that's,
2 is not on here.
264
264 gallons is on here, but that is like 4 of what most people have outside.
okay.
So like Carlisle, I know we all saw a lot of complaining on Carlisle's Borough Council page because they went to 1 trash can per month or per week and increased the cost of that, right? So we have all these options, so that
Yeah.
hopefully we can find something that doesn't increase rates and still gives a reasonable service.
Yeah, and there's 3 copies I have up here, but I was curious, and hopefully, I do not consider myself a mathematician by any means, but 4 containers times 64 gallons is 256 gallons of trash that we are able to generate and put in the curb right now. The 2 times 64 would still be 128 gallons. Keep in mind that your average tall kitchen bag is only 13 gallons. So, even if we went,
Yeah, it's like 10 of those, okay.
yeah,
So we're
Still-
well within, like,
still-
Oscar the trash is gonna be very happy, Oscar the, whatever, the grouch. Okay, and then my third question was the alley between 32nd and 33rd Street, because I know at some point trash was being picked up over there, but it's more of a comment than anything, that I did see them just picking up right directly on the bypass, just
Yep,
within
and
the
we're
last.
aware of that, and that's the information that came through and was confirmed with us this afternoon, today, finally. So exactly, that's why we need to make a modification to Schedule D to reflect that.
Okay,
Perfect. The alley there can handle the
Yeah.
Likewise, we are making sure about the South 18, South 19 situation, there's an alley down there too, that we learned that they only back up into, they don't actually collect the full alley, so. Those are the 2 adjustments that we.
You guys are just so terrific on top of all my questions. All right, thanks, those are my questions, I appreciate you addressing them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you. Community Business and Government Relations, Emily.
Hi,
Hi.
I don't have much this month because we canceled my meeting because my husband got COVID. It's very exciting. I do have the downtown coordinators report. I would say that, I was at the farmer's market yesterday for the grand opening ribbon cutting, and they have added a lot of vendors, and it was lovely. And the salsa and guacamole at the guacamole stand is outrageously good. My husband's like, what did I just spend $25 on? I was like, don't worry about it. He'll love it.
Isn't that true?
The farmer's market is every Tuesday until November 22nd from 3 to 7 p.m. I think right now they have 13 full-time vendors, and then they've got guest vendors that are coming different times depending on what they have when they have it. This weekend is the Harvest Hop. It is from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Enjoy shopping, dining, family games, live music, pumpkin decorating, beer gardens, and more along Market Street. You can find out more on the Downtown Campbell Association Facebook page or on the website. But that should be fun. So we should all go to that too. And there is a mixer on September 22nd at Centric Bank from 4:30 to 6:30. RSVPs can be sent to Julie at jhill@campbellborough. So that's how everyone feels about the program. And if we want to move forward with it.
And that's because normally we would meet in committee, and committee would come back with a recommendation at the next council meeting, but we won't be able to do that, so it's just a general conversation now.
I think it's a great idea.
I also think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I concur. I still remember my civics teachers, their names, hence why I went in public policy and are doing that, but, I'm curious, of like the 950 some odd boroughs that there are, how many, do you know how many have a junior council program in place? And are there any like exemplar, like doing it really well, involving them?
Some of them get, the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs gives out awards for outstanding junior council person.
They do, and in the PA Borough newsletter magazine that you all get, what is it, quarterly or something, there's usually a page in there somewhere showing headshots of the junior council persons from around the Commonwealth. And so they actually say on the flyer that when you do select a person that they would like to have a picture, so that way they can publish it, get the name out there. And then yeah, you can nominate for awards through the PA Association of Boroughs. And, so yeah, there's lots of opportunities there.
My only other question is, as we know, a lot of our work is done at the committee level. So knowing that the majority of our meetings happen at 8:15, with the exception of all arts are at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, mine's at 4 o'clock.
3 committees are at 4 o'clock. And how many are at 8 a.m.?
Or do they just go to the full council meeting?
If I could clarify, yeah, the expectation would be that they would be here at the full council meeting.
I'm just curious, so with so much conversation happening at the committee level, how do you envision a student being able to fully participate, engage in conversations? Like how and what, if anything, can we do to make that experience good for them, as opposed to, as we know, we get our packet and then, but there's a lot of work and conversation that leads up to the development of that packet and those action items.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's not something I've fully thought about. I think off the top of my head, I personally would not want a high school student to feel like they have to be a part of every one of the committees. So maybe something for council to consider would be maybe to offer a mentor. Maybe someone on council would be willing to be kind of like the junior council person's mentor, and then whatever committee that individual chairs would be kind of the focus of the junior council
And
person.
then they could help that mentor with all of their work.
You know, one thing I was just thinking, if you can figure all of this out, is maybe they could meet with, Sarah and I meet weekly to kind of discuss what's going on between meetings and whatnot. So we meet weekly, and then like the week prior, we go over the development of the agenda. So maybe that person could join us like the week before the committee meeting, so that where we're really talking about what's moving in each committee and how the agenda should be built. Like that might be a good overview.
Yeah, I don't really have a suggestion. I just know I've seen other boards, et cetera, that have student members, but they often sometimes just sit there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that, that's not
think-
the type of experience that we want to.
I would think, I like the idea of them meeting with you guys, but I think if you did it on the committee level, they would have to pick one committee.
Yeah, just one.
I
I
don't
think
think
that
it
would be
would
fun
one.
though, if they could pick a committee. Why can't they rotate?
Yeah, they would rotate.
It's a good suggestion.
They could do like one committee meeting
Each.
month.
Each month.
Yeah.
They go to a different one each day and see what's going on.
Yeah.
We
My other
have like a committee for every month.
We do.
We have so
Yeah.
many committees.
Before I forget what I was gonna say, we have had a junior planning commission member.
Yes, that's been put on my radar.
Okay, Michael Boucher,
Okay.
and I think he graduated. I have no idea how he got that position in the first place, if there was ever a formal
I think there's a
program.
formal
set up.
application process.
Okay.
I don't know if it would.
I only saw him once, so I don't know if he was really enjoying it that much.
Right, and that would even be something too that I'd be willing to pursue, to try to grab a student to join that planning as a former member of a planning commission, I see the value in that as well. So, yeah, I think that my only thought process in doing this is you know, of course, I want to find the most motivated student, but these are still students. They are still participating in all kinds of extracurriculars, and so, you know, definitely, obviously, you know, the expectation that they would come to the monthly regular board meeting, and then I don't know if you would expect them, if you would so want them to be at a committee meeting, then we could work that in as well. But like I said, that is not something that I had considered ahead of time. So that would be up to council to decide, of course. We can continue to talk.
Maybe we could work out those details, like you and I together with Mr. Tubbs could work out those details, assuming that everyone on council thinks it's a good idea, that we can kind of work out those details. And we can talk to you more about whether you think we should be the ones that approve, you know, among those students that are nominated, or whether you think that would be better for you to do it. I mean, I don't think we need to be.
I think he knows them better.
That's kind of what I think. Yeah. But if you also don't want it to feel like a more real interview experience to them,
well,
right.
That would be cool. That would be cool. But you know, I will say that I intend to run an application and an essay process, and probably have some type of panel with maybe some of my colleagues in the social studies department or an administrator that could help just vet the applications and make sure that we're providing the best candidates.
And you'll tell them about all the exciting stuff that goes on in
Yeah.
local government
Yeah.
meetings. Like they'll know. He's like, I remember you sent your civics students here for, you know, for a project.
They'll be coming. Yeah.
And it was last year, somebody was talking about those kids that knock and run on the doors, and I could just see the students' faces like, this is what happens at this meeting. I probably talked about sewage then as well, and so just wanted them to know what they're getting into.
Yes. Oh yes. Yes. I will make sure that they're aware of the importance of the work that goes on here.
Okay, thank you.
But how sometimes important work is not always the most exciting.
It's very important work. Yeah.
It is important.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah. I don't know that at 18 or 16, I would have thought.
You'd be surprised.
I mean, perhaps Jared can tell us when he tells us about his Eagle Scout project in a few minutes. He can tell us how exciting this past hour has been for him to sit there.
I think it's a great idea.
I do.
And I just want to point out that an 18-year-old, or if you're going to start with a 10th grader, much younger, may not be comfortable with speaking at all, but there's a lot of value to sitting and listening and watching, and you have no idea what the impact will ultimately be in terms of shaping their future. So I don't think you can necessarily, you know, not think it doesn't have value if they're not highly participating.
Right. Oh, very Leslie Novish. I love that. You watch Parks and Rec? No. It's a good show. She always has inspiring things about local government. Anything else, Emily?
No, that's all I have.
All right, Parks and Rec. Mercedes.
All right. My committee's fun, by the way, so you can send it away. Actually, both of them. So from the monthly report, just some things to highlight is the volunteer award applications are due November 1st. The Halloween parade is scheduled for October 24th, and the rain date is the 25th. And we have Jaren Stever here, whose Eagle Scout project consists of two parts. One is to build a staircase behind the softball cage, and the other part is to swap out grass for stone in the shot put area. So that's something that's going to be considered for today. And we also have a request from Ron and Beverly Talbot to replace an existing bench that's in Willow Park in Decay, and it's in memory of their son that passed in December 2020. And also have just quick updates on the Miracle on 24th Street Holiday Market Subcommittee, also us. So we have approximately 30 vendors right now, and 80% of them operate within a 5-mile radius. Most of them are Camp Hillborough residents, so that's very exciting. I didn't know so many people had Etsy stores. And we're also looking for volunteers to help the day of the event and sponsors to help make the event possible. Sure. Sharon, so do you want to come up and talk a little bit more about your project?
Hello, Council. My name is Jaron Stever. I am a Life Scout with Troop 51 in Camp Hill. I have been in Scouts since the 1st grade, and I'm currently working on my Eagle Scout project and hoping to obtain that before my birthday in April 2023. So, as Mercedes Evans stated, there are 2 parts to my project. The first part is adding a staircase behind the behind the softball cages at the throwing area at Seaver Park. And the stairs would be made of pressure-treated wood with concrete footing, stone drainage, and weed barrier on either side. It would also have a railing on both sides that would be made out of steel. And it would have a gate added on to the existing fence there, connecting it to the main stadium. This would not only prevent injuries of student coaches and athletes, but it would secure their safety for going down the hills in general, getting down to the throwing area. I do not currently have a cost estimate at this point for these stairs due to requirement that I need to have it signed off and sealed by a licensed architect. My meeting with Steve Knob, my licensed architect, is actually tomorrow at 4:30. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me next week. And it does not have to be ADA compliant. Well, I was talking to Mr. Whiteman. He stated that it does not have to be ADA compliant. My second part is the shot put area. It is currently grass, and we've had many problems over the years with them getting stuck into the ground and just generally delaying the entire throwing events, trying to reach your entire arm down into the ground to pull out a 12-pound shot put. So I propose to turn that grass area into a 6-inch down layer of cinder. This, the stone itself would cost around $1,400, and the cost for the actual digging itself depends on what type of soil it is. If it is good topsoil, Borough Maintenance Director has stated that he would use it and take it. If it is not, then my family and my grandfather have both stated that they will use that soil for projects at their own home. I would like to have you, Borough Council, approve my project this evening. Once it is approved by you and my Scout Council this month, I can begin fundraising. The project can begin as soon as I have fundraising completed. But I hope to have groundbreaking in October and have the shot put area completed by the beginning of December or into the beginning of December, and have the post for the staircase put in the same time before the ground starts getting cold. And I would like to finish these staircases by mid-February into March. I will start it as soon as the ground thaws up or as soon as I'm able to actually get out there and start working. And I will, of course, keep Mrs. Blogar updated with the timeline as time goes on.
When does the track and field season begin?
It begins the second week of March.
Yeah, just comment. It sounds like a wonderful project. I like the fact that it's improving safety and making track and field a better experience for everybody, because I know that area. I can imagine going down that hill. It's very difficult.
Boy.
So the shot put area then would be done? Would that be the first thing that's done?
Yes, that would be the top priority to get that done, just to make sure that everything is okay and working before the season can start.
Is that picture where the stairs, the one we just saw, is that what the stairs would look like?
That is a general idea of what these stairs would look like. It would have another railing on the other side, and there would have to be a intermediate landing within it, but Steve Knob has told me that it could be quite literally anywhere, so I would plan it to have at the top.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Before we go to the next conversation, can I just, if you need to leave, Mr. Tubbs, we appreciate you coming. We we have like a rather lengthy meeting, and I don't think we're gonna come back to the junior council meeting again, so we're gonna put that on the agenda for next month, and we'll follow up with you.
Thanks.
I know you
Appreciate
have
it.
lots of
Thank you,
little
everybody.
kids to put to bed. Thank you.
Okay, back to the market. So, yeah, we're looking for volunteers and sponsors for the event. And then we have one action item, we're gonna be discussing, well, actually, we're not an action, we're gonna be discussing permitting the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages at Floral Park for the Miracle on 24th Street event.
We're discussing that now.
Yes. Yeah, I think we should discuss it now. So that we're just moving on to an action item later.
So this would be for a small beer garden that would be enclosed, just to
This is
clarify.
a small, so is this specific, so I guess because the discussion item and the action item were worded a little bit differently.
So,
The discussion item is very specific, whereas the action item is more broad in its application. So is this just to allow for the sale and consumption of alcohol at borough-sponsored events, or is it at any park at any time for any reason?
So, I was talking to Sarah about this last week, and she had some conversations with Lee about it. The idea is if we change the ordinance that outlaws alcoholic beverages in parks, we can change it so that it is allowed with borough council approval, not just for borough council or borough events, but anyone who would, get borough council approval for something like that. So like the special events permit that we've been discussing in planning and zoning, that would imagine that it would be a checkbox. Would you like to have alcohol at your event in this park? And then you have more forms to fill out and to then get the approval for it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, but it also begs a lot of questions for me.
Yeah.
And I feel a little bit like there's a lot of details that probably need to be hashed out and have to have a conversation about. And considering that I looked back in committee meeting minutes, and so this actually hasn't happened or been discussed in committee either,
Subcommittee.
for which there are no meeting minutes.
That is true.
I only bring that up because if we're advancing a proposal and we're talking about community and input,
Yeah.
I don't know if our community is fully aware, given that this is the first time it's been on our radar, that we are potentially talking about allowing the sale and consumption of alcohol in our parks, of which we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 park areas designated, so. And I have many other questions, but.
Right. Yeah, this is the question that we have been tossing around, and this is why we're bringing it to council, to have the conversation, to find out what everyone thinks about it.
My question is, do we have to make a decision to apply this in multiple circumstances, or can we just give approval for an event, borough-sponsored event?
I was gonna say, I think we could amend the ordinance so that it says borough-sponsored events, like we could change the language so that it doesn't require borough council approval, but it is allowed at public level borough-sponsored events or borough co-sponsored events, like maybe at DCHA. But Lee has told us that it is wiser to do it this way than to just have a waiver for this one event, which is what Emily was saying.
And why is
Well, if you're doing a waiver, the ordinance is still in place. You're basically asking your police to not enforce a valid ordinance. Whereas if you revise your ordinance to provide, and I think the more common is with borough council approval.
Right.
So, and that would allow borough council and staff to develop an application process where we can go through and make sure all of the questions that you might have about a particular event are detailed, outlined, make sure that there's appropriate licensure in place, insurance, all of those things. But I think this would just be the first step in, if we want to do it, that's a consideration that we would like to have with the parks, that's great. We revise the ordinance, and then we go through and we figure out the actual internal policies and procedures that go into place for how does an event get to you all for consideration. What do we need to know? And all of that would be set up with some type of process. So when an application comes to Borough Council, any questions that we might need to discuss here tonight are laid out in some type of application form.
Again, I'm just concerned that I would be inclined to support and like allowing and revising our ordinance to allow for the sale and consumption at borough's parks for the coastline city fence. I am not ready to support an open, and I understand it wouldn't be open. It would be subject to a permit or something like an application. Again, I have questions, and I wonder if this would be more appropriate for further conversation if we're going to take a broader application to refer it back to planning and zoning for that conversation. You know, we haven't talked about security issues. What does that mean for police resources? You know, we're talking about a glass of wine, a case of wine, a keg of beer, a glass of beer. Like, so those are the types of questions that I have.
I wouldn't want to be like having people come in and like say they want to have a graduation party in Willow Park and having us decide whose graduation party gets approved and whose doesn't. Like, how are we?
Right.
Like, I would. First of all, we have a lot of really big things like work that we have to do in these meetings. Like, if we had to like as a council, entertain like everyone's graduation party, wedding reception, etc. That's like a lot of time and work. We might not have time for it.
So, in the research of trying to figure this out, the answer is that for someone to sell alcohol in the park or anywhere in Camp Hill, they have to have a liquor license. There's specific liquor licenses for specific things. So the answer is that without a catering event license from the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, you can't sell it.
But what if they're not selling it? What if they're just consuming it?
Right, I think that's a different question.
I don't know. Is that true? That you could write an ordinance that was like specific to the sale? Like if people were having an event that.
It still would have to be consumption, though, right?
I mean, there would have to be consumption, but then you have a licensed person serving.
Right, I mean, that's if you have someone that's got the.
Really all.
You actually have an ordinance that deals with underage drinking. It's actually more than, it's kind of funny to read, to be honest with you.
I have to tell you, I'm not a fan of allowing parks to be used for alcohol consumption. You have so many different age levels, roaming parks, and, you know, you want to set a good model for young children growing up. I know that sounds very old-fashioned, but I would personally prefer, and I would prefer it just to be for borough-sponsored events, which aren't going to happen all the time.
And we'll know that we have police resources.
Yes.
So what do we have in place now for like DCHA events where they're selling?
But that's on private property.
It's on private property. The stipulation here is that it's
So the only
in the
difference
parks
is
and it's
that,
outlawed.
but I
in
mean,
the
don't we
parks.
have, is that not regulated or we don't have to regulate that?
It is regulated under a different ordinance. The ordinance revision that we're talking about is specifically to the park rules. And the park rules specifically prohibit the consumption, the possession or consumption of alcoholic beverages or being in a park of the borough in an intoxicated condition. So it would be revising that specific prohibition within the park rules ordinance to allow for alcohol possession and consumption under X circumstances.
So can it be done in a way that you can't still just go to the park and have a beer or, you know, bring a bottle of wine, but under certain circumstances, you can apply to sell alcohol alcohol, which would involve someone already with a liquor license. Does that make sense?
I think it kind of boils down to three options. Do you want to allow it at borough-sponsored events only? Next question, borough-sponsored events only and with council approval, or other events with council approval. So it's a borough-sponsored event's okay, a borough-sponsored event's okay only if also approved, or all events with council approval.
But again, you're talking about events.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Events only.
Only an event.
Like, only an event, not
Special events.
Right, you
private
can't have a
parties,
party
big
there.
Right.
What is an event that's not, so no one's graduation party would be allowed?
Right.
No, but I mean, for the third option, it sounds like,
Other events, what's an other event?
yeah, what's the other private
Right.
event? Like, that's not so much a private party.
Right.
We would write it in such a way that anything that involved alcohol would be an event
Right.
requiring borough approval. Frankly, I think it's probably the safest route is council-sponsored events with approval.
That's what
Or borough-sponsored events with approval. And that way you get the borough-sponsored, which is, I think, the easiest way to police it. But then you also have that extra layer where something's coming before council to look at and consider.
Keep in mind, we do have one building, enclosed building in Seabrook Park, or cabin, and that is included within the park limits, so there is no alcohol allowed in the cabin. So, I don't know, we want to specify indoors versus outdoors type events to preclude people from saying, well, I'm inside the cabin and nobody's going to know that I'm serving alcohol in the cabin.
Considering that question and some of the other questions. So with some of these unknowns not known,
Yeah.
as far as timing, like
Yeah.
if we were to go down this route of only borough-sponsored events with council approval, you have the information you need to bring a draft ordinance back, a revision back to the existing ordinance back to us. And when to us, does that mean back to Parks and Rec, or is that coming back to planning and zoning, or is that coming straight back to council? And the intention, of course, is to have this in place, in effect, in time for the Maker's Market, correct?
That's correct.
So does
There's
the time allow for all that to happen?
Close.
Close, you'd have to adopt it.
Yes.
Very close.
Literally.
Isn't that also assuming that the draft that he brings back to us, do you anticipate whatever you bring back to us is going to be detailed or very simplified?
Because we're revising the borough code and its ordinances, there will be a lot at the top and a lot at the bottom, but I will be revising one paragraph of section 145-5B. So, and that is, we'll say 15 words if I'm looking at it, so I'm adding a few words to an existing 15-word paragraph.
So it should be straightforward.
So the administration of it, what would be required, that would fall to the administrative side as opposed to the legislative aspect through council.
Is there a reason, you said with council approval. Is there a reason or why our zoning, some staff approval versus council approval?
I'm hearing some concerns and thought that based on those concerns that it might be good to have something come back before the borough. And I think if it's a borough-sponsored event, there's probably some point at which this council is approving it anyway.
That's what
So
I
it
was gonna
just sort of-
say, yeah. We
I
have
think
to
it's an
get
extra layer.
sanctions, so.
Yeah, the only reason that we're talking about having borough council approval and not having borough-sponsored events is the idea that if there is some other special event that is not sponsored by the borough, do we think it's fair for us to give ourselves permission? Right?
Well, the school district, we could always co-sponsor with any organization like that if it was a
Right.
public event. I think that the thing is, if it's a park,
Right.
like closing the park, like, it's
Right,
not
right,
like the
right.
park would be closed, so you'd have people wondering through your private event. So I do think like if the school district or some DCHA, like we could co-sponsor any kind of event that seems to be appropriate.
Right.
And it's still a public event, so that seems kind of fair to me, because anyone in the community can enjoy the park and participate.
Yeah.
So I have a question, because I'm not sure I understand what the layout is. Is there a reason that this could not be done on somebody's business property?
It's on 24th Street, so there are no business properties.
I know, I just didn't know if it was like down
No,
around the corner.
it's, definitely not. And also, we have been modifying the layout a bunch to make sure there's enough walking room for all of the people that will be potentially coming through for this. So the idea was to put the beer garden down in Willow, like where the old gazebo is. You know, it's like kind of flat there. It's like a open, flatter space, and it like sets it off to the side. Whereas if we put it in the middle of, say, 24th and Walnut, and had a beer garden there, no one would ever walk through. There would be traffic jams everywhere. So it's like, how do you get it off to the side? And that's where this park question came up. This is why we're here.
And my other question would be, the reason for it is just to make it more fun for everybody, or you think it's going to draw more people to shop?
I think all of the above.
And it's more like a German Christmas market with the spiced wine.
Beer and, yeah, that's the.
And the person that is serving doesn't have a liquor license?
No, they do.
They do.
Oh, okay.
They do.
And they have insurance to serve?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the whole key, we're all about having everyone have all of the licenses and everything. The only problem is that the spot that makes the most sense for it is in our park. And the park is going to be, as the park often, Willow gets a lot of events that are in the middle, it's in the middle of things, right? Because it creates more space there. So the event's taking place in the park and on the street at the same time.
And what's going to be the time frame for that particular beer garden?
Well, so it would be when the market is open.
Okay. And when's
So the market is open from 2 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
So another piece of the timetable would be if you authorize the solicitor to prepare an ordinance, as you're talking about doing, that would go before council to be considered for advertising in October, it would be considered for adoption in November. At the November meeting, I would recommend, and our insurance company would recommend, that we also have the contract with the organization that would be providing our particular event with that liquor license layout, and we would have a contract with them that would be approved by council at the November meeting also, to be before the December event. So that would be a two-pronged activity that would happen in November if you proceed with this.
What would happen in the event that this comes back to council as soon as next month to vote to advertise? And we receive public input that for whatever reason
Right.
would delay or change something and cause us to go back to the table, and would delay adoption until December. Is that an issue or not?
Yes.
It would be, our December meeting is after,
Yeah. The
The
December
market.
meeting is after market.
yeah.
But we can always go the less desirable route, I would imagine, and waive. At that moment, we could waive it for this one event, right? Because you don't need to advertise to waive.
That's like the
Well,
last case.
The worst case scenario.
Right.
Thank you guys for all your work on the market. It's very exciting. I love seeing Julie's daily, it seems like, posts of all the good shop vendors.
We just were approving new vendors before the meeting tonight. We were reviewing our next set of vendors. They keep coming. It's very exciting. We're very excited. Everyone tell your friends.
But the draft that the revisions you're giving, just to be clear, they're gonna come, they're not gonna go through committee between now and our next
will be.
Am I?
Well,
It
it's,
doesn't exactly say that.
well,
It's under Mercedes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
because Parks and Rec.
yeah, Mercedes is gonna make a motion, so it should come back however she moves and whatever she moves, whatever motion she puts forward to leave.
Yeah, try to.
I mean, because if appropriate,
Take
Ronnie,
care of
when is our next planning and zoning?
Friday.
Friday, and then the next one's not until.
So if you had something for Friday, we could.
Yeah,
look
can
at.
you?
I've got something else I need to get to Friday, so we'll get this one done as well.
I think you got this one.
Yeah,
It's coming back to
It can come to us at planning and zoning on Friday.
She's not gonna have time to do that. Oh, you did say?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you just said.
It's
No, I-
15 words.
I don't know.
I thought you just said you didn't have time.
No, I have something else I have to get to by Friday, so I'll just do those two things.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
It will be for borough sponsored only with,
Council approval.
Okay.
assuming that's what the action item is.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Council sponsored events.
It's already in my notes and no changes.
You're gonna tell Mercedes what to say then.
well, if there's no other comments there, we still have quite a few items.
And I have one more comment on this issue, and I'm sorry. But do we need to specify Borough Park at all, or do we just say for borough-sponsored event with council approval?
Are you suggesting specify or limit park?
It's
Like,
a park.
I'm revising.
We need to be specific. It's a
Yeah,
park.
or two, for if it's still open.
If it's borough sponsored, then
It's revising the park rules.
Yeah.
ordinance, so
Oh,
it's
that's
necessary.
okay, got it.
Not
it's not our wish
alcohol.
part.
Okay, park rules.
Planning and zoning.
Okay.
Jennifer, is that you?
It's me.
No, it's, oh, I'm sorry.
It's getting late. It is, okay, I'm gonna find my notes. All right. So the planning and zoning minutes from our August committee meeting and the code enforcement report are in your packet. In the month of August, the borough construction projects totaled $1,327, approximately, 300, let me say it again. $1,327,009. And Colton, was any of that borough monies, or was that just all building projects in the borough?
I don't believe any borough projects were in that one.
Cool, okay.
A lot of that was the shopping center. They had about 2 or 3 upfits going on.
Okay, great, so that's good, that's a good number. So this month's planning and zoning committee meeting will be this Friday at 8:15, and 2 of the items that are going to be on the agenda of note outside of this issue we just discussed we will continue the discussion of single-use plastic bags and straws, and discuss the idea of developing a survey for Campbell residents to see how they feel about single-use plastics, which are non-recyclable plastic bags. And we'll also see how they feel about perhaps sustainability practices as well. And we're also going to learn about a study that was just done to determine if our borough buildings are suitable for solar power. So that will be part of the discussion, and we'll be reviewing, looking at me. Okay, oddly. We'll also be discussing some changes to our fireworks ordinance that were some restrictions actually that we were allowed to add as a result of Act 74, which is a state, I don't know, what do you call it, state law ordinance? Okay. So next on the list here is regarding an ordinance to amend Chapter 187, which will change the minimum height of overhanging trees from 12 to 14 feet within 6 feet of the curbing. And we had advertised that last month, and I'll make a motion in our action items to approve that. Regarding the stormwater ordinance, you'll notice on the agenda it says that the ordinance is going to be recommended to be tabled. So what, we're tabling it only for a month. We're going to advertise it for one more month and allow for public review one more month, and we will bring it for approval in October. As far as an update on our draft zoning ordinance, we're awaiting our zoning consultant's update to the zoning ordinance that will incorporate some updates related to comments from both the Planning Commission and the informal comments from the county. So we're going to allow for another month of review for the Planning and Zoning Committee. Climate action report, there was a climate action meeting tonight. And discussion involved largely let's see what I want to call it, a reduction menu. So this is a menu of various items that would allow the borough to meet carbon dioxide reduction goals by 2030 and then again at 2050. They did provide in this meeting kind of an aggressive approach to meet those goals. So they suggested, and this is by no means what necessarily would be recommended, but they just wanted to give us an example of what it would take to meet our goals in an aggressive fashion. So they said if we could perhaps change our mode of transportation to electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid and adopt a 20% increase in those types of vehicles by 2030, that would be a huge effort in meeting our goal for 2030. A 2% annual replacement of natural gas furnaces with electric air source heat pumps, combined with a 10% increase in trips made by foot or on bike, which in doing that means you're not driving your car, so that's helping to reduce the carbon dioxide. And a 10% annual participation in energy education such as audits. Information is knowledge. Knowledge hopefully would produce change. And then a 5% annual increase in renewable power purchases for the residential sector, where people are choosing their the company that's generating or supplying their electricity. So those were some of the examples discussed tonight. The goal is to have a completed plan by the end of December and hopefully begin residential interaction like in a town hall situation in January to begin the discussions, so we all become a little bit more knowledgeable about the ideas for the plan. All right, Bee City USA. In this past month's planning and zoning meeting, the committee reviewed the online applications that were received from individuals wanting to serve on the Bee City Committee. And our Planning and Zoning Committee determined that we would like at least up to 5 committed individuals to serve as the consistent members and coordinators of the committee initially. Also, we did not feel that borough residency should be a requirement because there's a lot of talents people can bring to assist our borough. So currently we have 4 individuals we would like to recommend for appointment to the Bee City Committee and which we will vote on under the action items. Their names are Adele Philippides, Michelle Richardson, Mario Stanzione, and Lauren Taylor.
In this year's annual report that we've adopted, the ordinance is consistent with their model ordinance. Under this scenario, we wouldn't quite make it, but we can explain all of the efforts that we've made to get there. And we really are, this close. We've drafted the ordinance, we've taken it to the Public Works Committee, Planning and Zoning Committee, Stormwater Authority. I think we've discussed it a time or two here at full council. And so we'll be sure to detail all of those items, and that we are currently in the process of sort of an extended public comment period because we want to make sure that we've really done our due diligence there to incorporate any comments from the public. Lee can chime in too if you have an opinion on it, but I think that leaves us in pretty good stead with DEP. And looking at other municipalities in the area, Probably 70% of them are going to miss that deadline. I think we'll definitely be able to show progress in a good faith effort. And I don't expect that's going to cause DEP to bring the hammer down on us. We'll report the progress that we've made.
We've had a lot of discussions with DEP specifically relating to Cumberland and Franklin counties. This ordinance is technically being adopted to comply with the Cumberland County plan. Cumberland County would typically create a draft ordinance or model ordinance for consideration. Cumberland and Franklin are a little bit behind. Dauphin has gone through that. I've reviewed a number of these with HRG based on Dolphins for other communities. I don't really expect Cumberland's to make a significant change, but in light of the fact that we don't actually have the plan we're trying to comply with, DEP's indicated that this is going to be fine. And I also don't expect that when Cumberland County gets their model together, it's going to drastically require, or it's going to change anything with this. So I think we're covered on both ends.
I can comment on this too. Do you feel like the public really understands some of the elements in there that could affect their day-to-day life around washing cars and things like that?
I was just gonna say, probably not, because they don't, as we learned in the last, I mentioned in the last committee meeting that it was news to me that you're not actually allowed to wash your car with soap and let it run off into the street, so I'm sure there's a lot of education that's currently lacking, and that's why we have such great, ways of communicating with the public about this, like our newsletter and social media and the website, and there's only so much we can do to get the word out there.
Right, so have we put stuff out on Facebook about what the implication of this is? And we won't, the car washing and the other things that affect people's lives? I'm on Facebook a lot. I don't remember seeing us publish anything around this, but I think it'd be helpful.
Certainly agree with, doing whatever we can to get the word out, and I'll defer to others on the best way to do that. A couple of the points, specifically car washing and their requirements about how to drain a swimming pool, those aren't really ones that we have flexibility on, unfortunately. Those are kind of mandates that come down from the state. So regardless of what comments we might get on that, our hands are kind of tied on some of those issues. But definitely agree that getting the word out would be a good step any way we can.
That's exactly correct, especially with respect to swimming pools, because the Department of Environmental Protection came down on municipalities for not adequately enforcing their ordinances. I mean, and it's gone as far as municipalities flushing their fire hydrants and not putting a diffuser on the end. So this is not us. This is coming from above, and we're doing the best we can to comply with their requirements.
I have a comment on a separate topic there. The climate action plan, I noticed in our packet it didn't come up, but the trolley idea, would that help us if those trolleys were electric?
Well, of course, my initial plan is for the trolleys, the proposed trolleys to be electric, which would cut down on, vehicle traffic going in and around the borough. And, yeah, so that's the idea. We have a very, very long way to go to make the trolley dream be realized. Sarah has been reaching out and learning more for us, but we welcome any input that you have, Sherry.
Yeah, I was reading it. I think you guys are on the right track with everything. If there's something you need extra enthusiasm behind, let me know, but it looks good.
All money.
Money?
All the money.
All the money. Extra enthusiasm we will take in the form of cash donations.
Please write a check to Campbell Borough. My next bonus.
Okay, if that's everything, then Michelle, personnel policy and procedures.
Okay, we'd like to consider promotion of Sergeant Todd Harrod to the rank of lieutenant. He recently passed his test, and we'd like to move him along.
Just real quick, how long has he been working here in the borough? Just curious.
12 years.
12 years, okay.
Okay, seeing no additional questions there. The finance committee report.
Okay, terrific, gang. So, we do meet the fourth Thursday of every month, and as everyone in this council knows, we're in the middle of preparing our budget for next year. Just mentioning that for our community members. We had one budget meeting, those meetings will be happening in the evening, check our calendar, you'll be able to see some upcoming additional meetings as we kind of peel back the different layers of the budget. So, look for those. I guess the other thing I'll mention is if you want to come out to our meetings, they're always the fourth Thursday of any month. We did meet on August 25th at 8 a.m. We always go over budget against actual. You're going to see some things that we're going to be approving later on in our meeting, particularly around using municipal bid to authorize the sale of some phones and a card printer that we're not using. And then we'll be going through some action around approving the minimum municipal obligations for our pension plans. This happens every year around our 3 different plans that we support. We will also be motioning to accept the 2022 audit of our books. And then we will, just like we do every month, make a motion to authorize the payment of checks. Any questions?
Regarding the MML, having communicated to us about the unexpected increase, did we get clarification about why that occurred?
No, I got an email back yesterday after I emailed her and left many voicemails last Thursday. And she said it's very interesting and we're not the only municipality that brought it up. So apparently we're not the only ones that had a huge swing this year. They had a meeting Tuesday night. I reached out to her today, did not hear anything back. It's only regarding the police pension plan. The other two are very similar to prior years. The police plan had a monster swing from some reason from a large pension asset, and now we have to contribute to an underfunded pension liability. So that's why there's about an $80,000 swing from last year's MMO amounts to this year's MMO amounts.
If it's determined that the monster swing was an error of someone else and we approved this particular amount tonight and we find out otherwise, what would happen?
I assume based on the correspondence that we would just fix it in a subsequent meeting.
I mean, we have to, this is why we don't understand why they're paying such a mess at the pension administrator, but every municipality has to adopt an MMO by the end of September, so we have no choice but to amend it because we don't have the ability to. Well, we didn't, we're not committing those funds in this action. We have to, well, Jared, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, the MMO is essentially going to be our bill next year, but if they provided us with an incorrect MMO, there's a bunch of calculations that they provide and then we just insert our projected wages into it and that's our bill. If they provide us with incorrect information, I would assume they would let us amend it at that time. By law, we have to approve it by the end of September, but if they go back a month later and say, well, this is incorrect, I would hope they would let us amend it and not pay a lot more than we're actually required to. And this all just came up, I had to beg and plead just to even get the MMO. I got it Thursday of last week, the police one. I received the other 2 weeks before that, but for whatever reason there was a hold up on this one and then it appears that it potentially is incorrect and we're not the only ones.
So if tomorrow they come back and tell you it's incorrect, I mean, worst case scenario, we could have a special meeting at council to adopt one before the end of September, right? Is it the case that the newly adopted one could replace the one that was adopted this week?
This has never happened to anyone before. I've never heard of this happen.
Or is it fair to say that, I mean, again, the line, so is there potentially like, Rich should know, but is there a $171,000 MMO police line in our budget for 2023?
There's a pension contribution.
There's a pension contribution.
We get a certain amount from the state and the rest we have to pay in. So whatever you don't get from the state, you have to pay in to hit these numbers. Either from our own budgeted funds or from contributions from the employees. We have waived employee contributions for 2 of the 3 plans for a number of years. We don't feel equipped to make, like, we have to approve this tonight. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle if we're gonna require employees who have not been contributing to start contributing, and we just haven't had time to work all that through yet. But that, you just plant that seed in your minds now, because there are ramifications. If this is correct, we're gonna have to revisit that at budget time. So there's lots of pieces to this, and I hate bringing it to you with knowing that it doesn't make any sense, but I think our best option is to adopt it and keep working on it.
Great question. Any other questions?
The phones in the card printer, they're
Want to talk about those? So the phones, apparently no one uses them. They're just sitting on people's desks. I mean, I'm taking the abbreviated version, but maybe you can.
No, they're not sitting on people's desks. We went through a massive, Tammy went through a massive undertaking to convert all of our phones to digital phones. And so we have, I think there's 26 phones through from the whole building. We were gonna just put it on Municipid, but I know there were questions the last time. So we thought, let's take it through the council meeting, just give you a little bit more information about why. I mean, we might not get any offers on them at all, but we were leasing them for some reason, which was stupid, but the people, they basically said, well, if any little thing is wrong with them, when you give them back, we're not giving you any, what do you call it? Credit. We're not giving you any credit for your down payment on it. Security deposit, there it is. What time is it?
I know.
So we said we're gonna try to sell them and see if anybody bids on it. The card reader, card printer. They used to use it for the pool cards, and they changed to a new system. I don't know how long, it's just been sitting in the closet. We thought we'd ask and see what we could get for it. So I do have a reader on here, it's a printer, sorry.
Anything else? All right, there's not been any borough school district movement.
I'll make mention of a few things. So, one is I'm in the middle of finalizing just some highlights for these folks. I did it before for them prior to our meeting we had in April. And then we do have our meeting coming up on September 28th at 7 p.m. It'll be at the Camp Hill School District Board Room Conference Room. It's where they have their regular board room meetings over there in the new extension off of Hoover Elementary.
sharing your notes that you provided them the last time. Did you share those with Sarah and or Alyssa or somebody in advance of sending them over?
I didn't. I just really went through our minutes and just cherry picked things I thought they'd be interested in so that they could get at least a little sense for what our hot topics are. There are always things from our approved minutes. They could read them if they wanted to. But it's just more of a courtesy thing for them to see some of the things we've been up to.
Is council president wish to see that before it gets sent over?
It wouldn't hurt. We can just, I am happy to take a look, and maybe, yeah, I'm happy to take a look at it.
Okay, sure. If you guys want to look at it.
Just to make sure we're not missing anything that's like pretty particularly relevant to them. I don't know.
And you sent those to us in advance of that meeting last time, too,
I think
right?
I did. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
I think you did.
Yeah, I don't remember, but.
Just so we know what's on their radar when we go into that meeting. Okay, library board liaison.
So this Sunday is the kitchen tour that the library is having, and you are still able to buy tickets up until noon on Friday. They are also having an author visit. Sophia at Walden's, I think Sophia's a mechanicsburg. She wrote a book, and her cookbook is going to be, she's bringing it on Monday at 6:30. But the best news is that Frederickson was voted best of the best library in Harrisburg for 2020.
Okay, we have reached a period in our meeting where we have another opportunity for public comment. So if you would like to share any comments on the action items that are to follow, Please come up to the podium and state your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. And thank you. This is like a jam-packed meeting, so thank you all for staying. For spending your evening with us tonight.
I know, it's so nice.
You know, it's 9 o'clock.
I know, right?
Bruce Bigelow, 20 South 26th Street. Yeah, I don't know where everybody got to, but they did their thing. If you're looking for one citizen's vote on the liquor, beer, wine, whatever it is in borough parks, I say no. Put my me down in one no. Second thing, the scout group left, probably has to go get in bed early for school tomorrow. I didn't see it in the packet, his presentation, whether the, as far as the stone in the outfield of the girls softball field, if the girls softball program had been approached about their...
It's not in the field.
I actually,
chocolate area.
It's
So
behind the
they-
backstop.
What's that?
It's not in the softball field, it's
Yeah.
behind the backstop.
Behind the backstop.
Yeah.
So you don't think they'd have a problem? Okay.
yeah,
Anyhow,
as long
just
as I
bring
play
that up.
softball.
And the third thing is, I know that your trash contract is going to be based almost entirely on money, but I don't want to beat a dead horse, but as a member of the environmental club, I noticed in there that as part of the contract bid, they've got to submit a list of items that they do recycle and will accept as recycling, and I would hope that that becomes one of the factors that you use in making your final decision. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on then to new business. There are no action items under public safety. Public Works.
Okay. I move that we award the contract for the Cedar Park Pump Station Replacement Project to HRI Incorporated in the amount of $896,365, pending receipt of acceptable bonds and insurance.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of awarding the contract for the pump station replacement project to HRI Inc., please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move that we decline the bid option to construct improvements at the Creek Road Pump Station for an additional cost of $88,040.
Second. All right, a motion and a second to decline the bid option to construct improvements at the Creek Road Pump Station. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay. I move that we approve payment number 9, the final payment, in the amount of $28,390.02 to Pipe Services Corporation and close the on-call CCTV sanitary sewer inspection contract.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the final payment and close the contract for CCTV. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay. Finally, I move that we authorize advertisement of solicitation for bids for refuse and recyclables collection and processing.
A motion and a second for the solicitation of bids related to our trash contract. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries, and we will move on to Parks and Rec action items.
Thank you. I'd like to move to approve Eagle Scout project by Jaron Stever.
We have a motion and a second to approve that Eagle Scout project. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The project is approved.
Okay, I'd like to move to approve the memorial bench replacement in Willow Park.
We have a motion and a second to replace the memorial bench in Willow. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
And lastly, I'd like to move to recommend authorizing our solicitor to prepare an ordinance to permit the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages in a borough park for borough-sponsored events with council approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the solicitor to prepare that ordinance to make the amendment for the borough count, for alcoholic beverages at borough-sponsored events in the parks with council approval. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. And, all right, thank you, Mercedes. Planning and zoning.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-06, amending chapter 187.
Second? Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 2022-06 to amend chapter 187. Any discussion?
Yeah, remind me what this one is? I don't think we discussed this.
This was increasing the height of trees.
Oh, this is the tree one, okay, got it.
And largely because we got a new leaf truck.
Yeah, okay, thank you, I just needed the tree connection.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, and I'd like to make a motion to table the stormwater management ordinance and consider it at the October 12th meeting.
Second? Discussion. Is there any, I'm sorry, all those in favor of tabling the stormwater management ordinance, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion's tabled. The ordinance is tabled.
Oh, I would like to make a motion to appoint the City USA committee leaders.
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint our Key City USA leaders. Any discussion? Thank you for staying around to be appointed officially in person tonight, Michelle.
Congratulations.
Michelle Richardson is one of the nominees here. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Congratulations. And to those who are, I'm sure, online as well. PvP then, right?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to promote Sergeant Todd Harrow to the rank of lieutenant. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to promote Sergeant Todd Harrow to lieutenant, effective
September 19th.
September 19th.
Thank you.
Kate, would you like to say anything about this promotion?
It's not late enough, so I think I'll discuss it. We've discussed this several times at public safety. This is a good move for the police department. We're looking forward to him assuming this new rank. Thank you.
Okay, so we will now vote on promoting Sergeant Todd Harrow to the rank of lieutenant effective September 19th. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries, and we are on to finance, Sherry.
All right, terrific. I make the motion to authorize the sale of the phones and the card printer on municipal bid.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to authorize the sale of those items on municipal bid. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Awesome. Excellent. Make a motion to approve the minimum municipal obligations for our 3 pension plans. I guess I have to read all these.
Wait, 1 second.
I would go one by one.
One by one, okay. Okay. I make a motion to approve the minimum municipal obligations for pension plans. This is first plan number 21003, 3 and 1. It's our non-police employees hired prior to 4/1/2016 for the amount of $20,218.
Is there a second? Any discussion? I have one minor question. Hired prior to and hired after, where do the people who were hired on, I mean, should we have hired, if we hired anyone on the first, where would that fall? Should one of those say on or at?
We didn't.
Okay, so we just don't worry about that. Okay.
I was nowhere to
That's a good question.
Sorry, it's like the editor in me is wondering where that gap is. Okay, all those in favor of approving the MMO for the non-police employees hired prior to the 1st of April 2016, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, terrific. Make a motion to approve the minimum municipal obligations for pension plan number 21003, 3 and 2, and this is for the non-police employees hired after 4/1/2016 for the amount of $62,921.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the MMO for the non-police employees hired after 4/1/16. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, make a motion to approve the minimum municipal obligations for pension plan number 21003P as police for the amount of $171,339.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving plan 21003-3P, our police MMO, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, terrific. I make a motion to accept our 2022 audit.
Second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second to accept our 2022 audit. Okay, all those in favor of accepting our 2022 audit, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is accepted. And, okay.
And I make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $382,913.50.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to pay the bills for this month. Is there any discussion of the bills? All those in favor of paying checks in the amount of paying the bills. Please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we are at the end, and there's an opportunity for public comment.
Sorry, I'm gonna lengthen it just a little bit.
It's okay.
I have a couple things. First one is trash talk. Is there the yard waste Richard Mance, 2000 Princeton. Is the yard waste collection still happening this Saturday?
Yeah.
And when is the last, third Saturday, and when is the last for the year, October or November?
November.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, I thought of this while I was sitting here, the stormwater grate at the intersection of Dickinson and Pennsylvania is actually broken. There's a chunk missing out of it. And what was my third thing? Oh yeah, and I know I brought this up before, and this is kind of not really borough council, but kind of could be. Harrisburg Restaurant Week is going on. I advise you to take your significant other and enjoy some of the lovely restaurants. There's more restaurants participating than ever, but it would really be nice if the West Shore had their own, and I've said that before. Not to compete, but to augment.
Any other comments? Okay, an opportunity for closing remarks by council. Start with you, Sherry.
I mean, nothing standing out. I think it's a long meeting, but I think, we've got a lot of good things going on, so just keep on trucking.
No comment.
Just appreciation to our staff who have put in many, many hours, and I often wonder how they do it.
I just want to comment on the restaurant week thing. We did discuss it at my committee, and we think it's more of a county level.
Okay.
And I have sent a message to one of the county commissioners about it, and never really got much back about it. But I did put in some effort on that.
Okay.
And it's
versus the whole thing.
And I would just like to reiterate what Jennifer said, the level of patience and outreach and work that all the staff have been doing, but particularly Lester and Sarah around this heating project. So we really appreciate everything you're doing. And with that, we will adjourn to executive session.